Senator Dianne Feinstein raised a lot of eyebrows on Capitol Hill yesterday during a Senate hearing where they were discussing whether a United States citizen should be able to sue China for the coronavirus and their mishandling of that process. She said, basically praised China as a good country. I mean, I don't really know other way to say it. Let's take a listen.
We hold China as a potential trading partner, as a country that has pulled tens of millions of people out of poverty in a short period of time, and as a country growing into a respectable nation among other nations. And I deeply believe that.
Well, look, Krystal, you can agree that maybe you shouldn't be able to sue China. I don't think that. I think you should also be able to sue Saudi Arabia for the record, unlike the Obama administration. But to have to go out and be like, I still believe China is growing into a respectable nation. It's like, no, you don't have to say that. You don't have to praise people who lock people in camps, or millions of Uyghur Muslim in camps, and are like destroying the free city of Hong Kong.
Cracking down on Hong Kong.
Yeah, for no other reason than in order to extend their plutocracy into a city, which was actually pretty cool.
Yeah, and spying on countries and certainly their own citizens, many human rights abuses. I mean, the only way I can wrap my head around this, and by the way, other Democrats had much more nuanced arguments about this liability thing. Like, I think it's a complicated issue because there's also like, well, we haven't handled the coronavirus so well either, so are people going to sue our government as well? Maybe they should be able to. I'm actually kind of open to that idea as well. But so there's that argument. There's also the idea, which I also agree with, that this is sort of political theater. It's a distraction from the administration's own failed handling of the virus. You can make all those nuanced arguments. You actually had Dick Durbin, who voted in favor of moving forward with this. You had Blumenthal, who said, he wasn't on board with this, was too sort of broad, but he could go for potentially more narrow piece. So there's an actual argument to be made here, but just to be like, China's awesome, I don't know what y'all are talking about, is ridiculous. I think it speaks to this way that Trump has broken Democrats' brains, where because he is very aggressively anti-China, at least in his rhetoric, not so much in his actions
not even
anymore.
In his policy.
It's not even real anymore. But anyway, in his rhetoric, then they feel like they have to be like, no, he says China is bad, therefore we must say China is good. I really think that's what it must come down to. It kind of reminds me of the way that they also are now all in love with George W. Bush.
Yes,
like we saw
from the John Lewis.
Eulogizing John Lewis yesterday, but even before then, there's this desire to be like, oh, well, Trump doesn't like George W. Bush, so now we like George W. Bush. It's just this really stupid way of approaching things.
You don't have to do it, guys. You really don't. Also, don't forget this. Dianne Feinstein had a Chinese spy on her staff, her driver, for years and didn't even know about it. So add that into the mix and you're like, really, what is going on here?
Well, and there is some incredibly relevant news that is breaking just this morning. We've tried to keep you abreast of developments in Hong Kong, the pro-democracy protests, the way that those have really been stifled, both by Carrie Lam and the sort of pro-Beijing government that is there, and of course by mainland China and this defense security law that is really seeking to crack down on any sort of right to speech and ability to protest. So now, and this doesn't
sound familiar?
This sounds very familiar, kind of makes me even more nervous. Hong Kong is announcing that they are delaying elections, citing the coronavirus, saying that it is not safe, saying we have to push it off for a year. Well, it looks very much like a blatant attempt just to stem the losses that pro-Beijing politicians were very likely to face here. Carrie Lam is out saying, oh, no, it's just about keeping everybody safe. But obviously, pro-democracy activists are seeing through this on the ground as a blatant attempt to suppress their vote. There have been other efforts as well. Some of their candidates have been barred from running and other actions have been taken. So, this is what we're talking about here, Dianne Feinstein. You don't need to whitewash the Chinese Communist Party's actions in order to make an intelligent argument against some of the things that the Trump administration is doing here, or against the blatant, racist language that has been values. You don't have to go out and be like, because you say China is bad, I say China is good.
It is you are fully capable of saying that the United States government has not handled this well and that a lot of people here should pay for what they have done.
Yeah.
While also saying that the Chinese Communist Party covered up this from the beginning and is a terrible regime which treats its people terribly.
Yeah, and by the way,
difficult.
One other point on the hypocrisy. For Republicans who are pushing for corporate liability shield, it's kind of a blatant issue of hypocrisy here on that level as well. So next time around, maybe make that point.
All right. We'll have more Rising for you after this.